Good morning. So it's been a bit since I filmed one of these. I might be a little bit uncomfortable. That's okay, we're gonna go with it. I have been itching to film some more YouTube videos, and the simplest one to start with is just another podcast episode. So all the book videos that I would absolutely love to film require a bit more prior planning beforehand. And I haven't really planned this one that much at all, except to decide that I wanted to film one. Gotta move those patterns out of the way because it's covering one of my knitting projects. So it's been a bit. We've been busy, lots of work and whatnot. I've been very people drained, and so I haven't had much, if any, energy to do a lot of creative stuff, which explains why it's like a couple months since I last filmed one of these. And I've also just been doing a lot of thinking and going back and forth with blogging and YouTube and all of that, all the stuff that I've just been thinking about this year. But I've also just, work has been really exhausting me. It hasn't been any busier than normal. It's just a lot of people exposure. And for me, I have a very, very low, I don't know what you want to call it, bar for people, being around people. I do not have much energy for it. And so I will be at work all day, or even if I'm not around people 100% of the time, I'm around people a lot. And so that basically zaps any and all energy that I have creatively, physically, mentally, emotionally. I'm just pooped at the end of the day. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and crack on with the rest of these things that I want to show you, because I haven't charged my battery in a while for my camera because it's just been sitting there waiting for me to use it. So I'm hoping that there will be enough battery life in it to film this video. I guess we'll go ahead and talk about sewing, because I haven't done much in the sewing department. I've just been feeling kind of a, I don't know, I guess you could say a lack of motivation when it comes to sewing. I think it's a combination of a couple of different things. I really burnt myself out with Minerva and wedding dress sewing last year. And I'm still kind of recovering from that. The only thing that I have actually finished sewing is this Felicity dress out of this pretty cherry print, which I will be honest, I am absolutely in love with this dress. It's just got a gathered skirt, and then I put patch pockets on it, which you cannot see. There you go. On the front, which I love. There, I don't know if you'll be able to see that at all. It's such a busy print. I just curved the corners out at the bottom, and then it's just a very basic plain patch pocket. And then it's got a nice long, probably considered a midi skirt length. And I'm really loving the gathered skirts right now. When I first started sewing, I couldn't stand them. I thought they made me look frumpy and weird, but I don't know, the past like 2-3 years I've realized how much I love gathered skirts. They're very simple to do, and they're also very, I don't know, fabric conscious. You can use up 90% of the fabric when you do a gathered skirt, and I love that. I love not having weird odds and ends of scraps that I don't know what to do with, but they're too big to throw away. So this is the Jennifer Lauren handmade Felicity dress, and it's one of my all-time favorite patterns. It has a very simple gathered neckline. There's no darts or anything, which makes it so simple and easy. And then in the back, I've got a lapped zipper, and then up at the top, instead of a hook and eye, I've started doing, for all of the Felicity dresses that I have made, I've always done this. It's a button loop and a button. Let me see. There we go. Yeah, and it's just a hand-worked button loop, and then I just find some random button from my button jar, and I loved how this one kind of contrasted. I like it. So, and this is just made from a quilting cotton that I got from Joann's quite a while ago. I've had this probably a year or two at this point. It's been a bit. And one of my goals for this year is to work through the majority of my fabric stash, and I've gotten rid of a lot of it, and I have hopes of getting most of it gone by the end of the year. So that's the only finished sewing thing that I have. And then I am, as evidenced by the pins, in the process of working on another dress. And this is a little more burgundy than it's showing up on screen, but not much. It's a beautiful cranberry red fabric that I also got from Joann's. It's just another cotton. And I'm making the Jennifer Lauren handmade layaway dress. I'll pop a picture up here for you. And I've actually modified it so that it's going to have a sweetheart neckline, which is a little bit hard to see right now. Well, actually I can show you my pattern. This is my modified pattern piece. And it's gonna have a nice sweetheart neckline, which I'm really excited about. And I've put short puffed sleeves on it, which, this is the funny thing, I've actually used the sleeve pattern from the Deer and Doe cardamom dress, which is another one of my all-time favorite patterns. And I've just chopped it off really short, and I'm gonna fold it up and possibly put some elastic in it. It's just, I'm loving that sleeve look right now. I worked on this yesterday, and it'll probably just, again, have another gathered skirt with inseam pockets. But we'll see how long this one takes me. I will say this cherry dress took me probably a month because I just worked on it here and there and would go for like 2 weeks without touching it. So I'm kind of hoping I can ease myself back into doing some more regular sewing because I've got several things I want to make. Give me just a second. I'm gonna eat a bite of my peach, which it's peach season, and so I have been having a peach for breakfast every morning for the past like 2 weeks, and it is phenomenal. Technically, I have a couple of finished objects with knitting. I don't remember where I was on my last podcast when I talked about these, but I have 2 pairs of shorty socks made out of Patons Kroy sock yarn, and these have been worn a bit. Mike has been wearing these, I've been wearing these, so they might look a little bit funny, but this is made out of the Sidewalk Chalk stripes, I believe, and I used the Hermione's Everyday sock pattern by Erica Luder for these ones. You can kind of see it just gives a very subtle texture to it. And then I used a heel flap and gusset with there's a name for this specific heel and I can't remember what it is, but it's just a heel flap and gusset one. It's actually in the pattern for the Hermione's Everyday socks because it gives you this really nice garter edging to your heel, so that then when you pick up the stitches, there's none of those crazy gaps that I hate about the slip stitch heel flap and gusset, which is kind of the traditional one, I guess. And so then on this one, I ended up I ran out of yarn for the main color, and so I used Patons Kroy in Flax, I believe is the colorway. And if I realized that I was gonna have to do that, I would have split it and done toes on both of them, but I didn't have the flax yarn, and I was crossing my fingers that I would have enough, and I didn't. So I made those, and then this is out of the 50s stripe colorway, I think. And again, for these I planned ahead and used the flax colorway for the heel and the toes. And these are just some plain vanilla socks. And I really like how they turned out. And both of these were knit on US size 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles, which is my standard needle size, over 56 stitches. I will say the Patons Kroy sock yarn is a lot thicker than typical fingering weight sock yarn, so just keep that in mind. I probably could go down a needle size and then up a few stitches, but I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm just having fun. So there's those 2. And then I'm in the process of working on another just pair of vanilla socks out of some of my hand-dyed yarn. And this is the first one. I've woven all the ends in, but I just haven't trimmed them off. So this is the first one. And this is one of my all-time favorite colorways that I've ever dyed. And it was sitting in my stash forever, and I was trying to think about some sort of a shawl pattern that I could use it for, or how I could incorporate it into a sweater. And I just realized, I was like, honestly, just make some socks. Just make some socks already. I only had one 100-gram skein of yarn, so it really, there's dust. it really limited what I could have made from it. And so I just decided that I'm going to make a pair of shorty socks, and I'm going to make a pair of longer full-length socks. I'm really excited about it. Because the thing is I always end up having a lot of leftovers from a 100-gram skein of yarn when I make socks. And so I think I should be able to make 2 pairs of socks out of one. Especially since I'm doing the cuff and toe in another one of my hand-dyed yarns. It's just this green, which actually ended up blending much better with this main color of yarn than I expected it to. I thought it was gonna pop and stand out a little bit more, but it doesn't. But regardless, I'm really happy with this. It's just a basic shorty sock with, it's a vanilla sock. It's just all stockinette. And I did about 8 or 9 rows of ribbing for the cuff, and then did 1 row, and then started the heel. And again, it's just this is, I think, my all-time favorite heel at this point. It's that. And then with that garter edging, I have not had any issues with gaping along the side of the heel, so I love it. And again, US size 1 or 2.25 over 56 stitches, and this is just a superwash merino nylon blend, kind of a traditional or standard sock yarn, I guess you could say. And then I just cast on the second one last night, so just a cuff so far, in case you're curious. This is what it looks like in a cake. So it's just such a pretty yarn, and I am really happy with the job I did on it. It's got pops of yellow and blue and purple and little bits of pink, and I'm really excited. So what I'm planning to do for the other ones is hopefully make them a little bit longer on the leg portion, and I want to use oh, what's it called? Handmade. It's Olivia. I'm pretty sure that's her name. Handmade Life or something. She has a ton of sock patterns, and I just am a sucker for most all of them. And she has this one that's just a really pretty simple cable stitch pattern, and I think it's Wind Song or something like that. I'll put a picture up here. And it is so pretty, and I don't have any solid color sock yarns, but I realized that this one would be great for that because it will give the yarn an opportunity to shine and show off the color, but it will also really show that cable stitch pattern without being too crazy of a yarn. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then the one other knitting project that I am currently working on, I do technically have this sock that has just been kind of sitting at the side, and this is the Mermaid Avenue sock by Summerlee Design Co. And I really like it, I just haven't picked it back up. I haven't been feeling in the mood for working on it, so that's why I'm doing vanilla socks and other socks. But the one other project that I'm working on, I love it so much. Hold on, it's another peach break. This one's a little bit hard to show you because I've got 2 skeins of yarn attached to it, or 2 balls of yarn attached to it. And that is because I'm working on the sleeve. This is the Gill sweater by Claire Walls of Flossy Knits, and I love this thing so much. I have been wanting to knit it for absolutely forever, and I finally cast it on a couple of weeks ago, and it is fulfilling everything that I hoped it would. Just look at this. It's got this gorgeous cable down the front, and then all the rest of it is just a moss stitch. And so far, this might be my favorite sweater pattern that I have ever knit. Like, I am just so excited about it. So I've worked just past, probably 2 or 3 inches past where you separate for the sleeves. And then I stopped working on the body and started working on the sleeves because I wanted to try it out and see. I've heard a lot of people talk about that they would do that and they would do the sleeves before they finish the body, and that way it makes it feel a little bit less annoying when you get done with the body and then you're like, oh, I still have 2 sleeves left to do. I love this so much, and the colorway that I picked for it is perfect. And this is another one of my hand-dyed yarns, which turned out the exact color that I was going for, which doesn't always happen. If you know, you know. Yarn and dye kind of has a mind of its own. But this turned out to be a lovely forest green, and just look at that cable. And just the squidgy texture of it. It's so good. And anyway, so I'm working on the sleeve, and I'm really hoping to get this done pretty soon. It might look a little bit small at the moment, but I do like my sweaters to have negative ease, especially hand knit sweaters, because they always grow and they always stretch out and get kind of loose. So I am deliberately making it a snug gauge and probably one size down than what most people would do, purely because I want it to be a nice snug, like, you know, vintage type of a fit. So it's so pretty. I would say I do highly recommend Claire's patterns. She's one of my all-time favorite knitting pattern designers. Her designs are amazing. I've had the privilege to test knit for her probably half a dozen times at this point, and pretty much everything that I've made of her patterns has ended up being one of my all-time favorite patterns. I've done like one of her shawl patterns, her shawl pattern. I've actually done 2 of them, and both of those shawls are like my favorite things ever. I did the Mel shawl pattern a couple years ago, and I keep it at my office, and it is just phenomenal. It's the perfect size, it's the perfect shape, the texture is amazing. It's phenomenal. And then I did the Lazy Sunday socks, which are really pretty, and it's the toe-up construction, which I hadn't ever done a toe-up heel flap and gusset, and it was so clearly explained. Like, it's really good. I really recommend it. And then I did the Corbell sweater, which is just an all-over, it's in pieces, which was really interesting. I hadn't done that design before, and I loved it. I really enjoyed knitting it. And so I did that one. I'm working on this one. I think there's been a couple of other ones too, but I really highly recommend her as a knitting pattern designer. She has very classic, beautiful designs that are relatively mindless, but more interesting than just straight garter stitch. And like I said, every one of her designs that I have knit, I have loved. So, and this is definitely no different. So, I'm so excited. I need to work on this more. That is all that I have as far as knitting and sewing and general creative stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and end things here. I'm hoping to get a couple videos up about some books that I've been reading here recently, so I don't want to talk about them too much here because I want to kind of think about it and then make a separate video. But yeah, I would love to hear what you've been working on, what you've been getting up to. We're starting to get closer to the end of summer. In Tennessee, where I live, it's still going to be warm until probably end of September. But once September hits, it's like, okay, we're getting there. So that's really exciting. Micah and I have a family vacation coming up in a couple of weeks, which we are so ready for. I'm so ready for a long break from work. But yeah, other than that, we haven't been doing too much. A lot of work, and then coming home and recovering, and then more work. But okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end things here. Like I said, I'm not great at this whole ending video things, but thank you so much for joining me today. I am so glad that you are here. I hope that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.